right? So they are aware of these hidden universal powers. But these beings, there were two groups of them, and they had some issues in their star system. The two brothers, Enki and Enlil, your Yahweh and your Baal, right? They had to look for gold, right? And in looking for gold, and because of the atmosphere, there was an issue with their atmosphere. There was a huge hole in their ozone, same way you have here on Earth. They wanted to solve it by using dust particles from gold to, let's say, reflect the harmful UV light rays that were coming in, the ultraviolet rays. This craft would pass certain suns and certain solar systems, and because this hole in their atmosphere was damaging, they had to look for gold in other places. And one of their stopping points was Earth. They would come back and forth to Earth every 3,600 years. It was called a shard, okay? And this is where the 360 years, the Mesopotamians talked about it because they taught them about it. When you look at Mesopotamia on the walls of certain temples in Babylon, you'll see these planets and this Nibiru craft that is written or carved, engraved, and scientists were like, how did the Mesopotamians know about the solar system and the 10th planet if they didn't have any telescopes? Well, these beings, these Anunnaki, Elohim, taught them. And so they had to come to this planet to look for gold. And they did find gold here in South Africa. And this is why when you look in Genesis, it says, and the gold of that land is good, right? People are like, why is these beings worried about gold? How is gold on a planet that you just created 6 days ago? These are the reasoning questions that the Father gets us to use our minds to think. How gold takes millions of years to develop, right? I see your question, Ray. I'm taking note of your questions, so don't you put them in the chat. When the Father's like, how would this gold evolve? It takes millions of years for the molecules of gold to multiply and to be compounded enough to be sourced out to acknowledge it that it's good. But this Lord or these Elohim saw that the gold of the land was good. So they came here. However, the work to mine the gold in South Africa specifically was very difficult, right? These beings came to this planet. They saw how void and dark it was in a particular area, right? And so they hovered above. They called it the spirit of the Elohim in this huge craft. And they said, let there be light. They shone their light, this craft's light within the atmosphere. And so they stirred up the creation, right? They stirred up They stirred up a creation on this planet in the area of Mesopotamia, but they've been coming back for thousands of years. The work was very arduous for them. It was very difficult. They couldn't mine. They were getting complaints, right? They kept complaining. The other Anunnaki who were working in the mines began to complain to Enki and began to complain to Enlil that the work was difficult. This is not in your Genesis text. This is in the older text. The Genesis story just is a small fragment of what happened. That's why it's very difficult to understand, and everyone knows there's gaps missing, right? But we're pre-history. We're pre-story of the Adamite. When these beings came, the work was difficult, so they came up with a plan. The plan was to do what? Let us make a man to do the work for us, right? So they had to come up with an idea of how to breed a man. If you read Genesis, it says, we have not found a man to do work, to till the ground. This was a plan that had nothing to do with anything religious. This had to do with the work that was needed, and they couldn't find or didn't find a man to till the ground. So they said, let us make one. Let us breed one, but let us use our genes. The word, let us make man in our image. They said we need him to look like us and act like us in order to be obedient, in order to carry out a specific group or a specific task, which was to mine the gold so they could transport it back to their mother craft, Nibiru, and transport it back to the heavenly abode where they came from. And this is why in the Genesis story, you'll see that in the breeding, they had to see how this creation would behave. So they bred this being in a specific location in Africa, and they placed or took the man and placed him eastward in the habitat. He wasn't bred there. He was brought there, and they used the genes, right, of the genetic cloning that took place in the bone marrow is where they had to make the two individuals, Adapa and Titi, or Adam and Eve, compatible in order to mix. So they said, let's use the blood of the bone, which is symbolic of the rib. So this was all genetic. It had nothing to do with this God coming out bored. Like, picture the story. This Allah or Yahweh or Jehovah alone forever, mind you, in heaven, doing nothing for an eternity, and just decides, I'm going to make a man. Why? Or I'm going to make angels because I'm bored. It is not good for man to be alone. Okay. If you know it's not good for man to be alone, that's a confession that you were alone. If they say God was alone, if it's not good for man to be alone, was he alone or was he not alone? According to this religious dogma, they teach that God was alone. He created heaven and went inside.